India and the US are said to have made significant progress in negotiations for a mutually beneficial bilateral trade pact as Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US Vice President Vance held wide-ranging talks focusing on boosting cooperation in areas of defense, energy and strategic technologies. Now, the talks took place hours after Vance, accompanied by Indian origin Second Lady of the United States, Usha Chilkuri, and their three children, son Ivan, Vivek, and daughter Mirabel, landed in New Delhi on a largely personal four-day visit to India that comes amid growing global tensions over the US trade tariff war. Now, the White House said Vance and Modi welcomed significant progress in the negotiations for the trade pact and formally announced the finalization of the terms of reference for the negotiations, laying down a roadmap for further discussions about economic priorities. Now, following the talks, Modi hosted Vance and his family over dinner at his 7 Lok Kalyan Marg residence that was also joined by several Union cabinet ministers and American officials. Now, the Prime Minister's office said Modi conveyed to Vance his warm greetings for President Donald Trump and said that he looked forward to his visit to India later this year. Now, in a social media post, meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi said the India-US Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership will be a defining partnership of the 21st century for a better future of our people and the world. He also added that India and US are committed to mutually beneficial cooperation, including in trade, technology, defense, energy, as well as people-to-people exchanges. New Delhi and Washington are holding negotiations to seal a bilateral trade agreement, or a BTA as it is referred to, as agreed during Modi's talks with Trump in Washington, D.C. in the month of February. Now, the trade pact is expected to address a variety of issues, including tariffs and market access. India is looking at firming up the first tranche of the trade pact before Trump's pause on the customized reciprocal tariffs lapse. In a post on X, Vance said he looks forward to working under US President Trump's leadership to strengthen friendship and cooperation with India. Now, this is the latest development that we are bringing to you this morning. Jayant Dasgupta, former Indian ambassador to WTO, joins us this morning. Mr. Dasgupta, good morning. Well, it seems like great optics with not just the US Vice President, but the entire second family visiting India. Impeccable timing as tariffs stay paused. What's your read really on India and the US finalizing the contours of the first tranche of the BTA and that being on track for fall of this year?
I think the talks are progressing very well, and of course the 90-day deadline ends around the 8th of July. So the Indian negotiators now are going to Washington tomorrow, and I think this will be a very significant meeting because the terms of reference have already been finalized.
Right.
And now the discussions have been structured into 19 chapters. So 4 of those chapters are extremely important. One is, of course, tariffs, which is the foremost. The second one is non-tariff barriers. And the US has been mentioning this time and time again, that these add to the costs of the exporters and have a tariff equivalent in a sense. For instance, if you have to, get all kinds of certificates and they cost money, they cost time, that adds up. The third one is about customs facilitation, because even after you have conformed to everything that is required, then you have to wait for customs clearances and maybe in a few cases some queries, etc., which you have to answer, and it takes time. And the last one is extremely important from the point of view of global trade for the US. It is about rules of origin.
Right.
Because if the US is going to have a differential tariff structure for all countries in the world, then there would be different rules of origin for each product, each country. And
Absolutely.
it is a minefield. It is mind-boggling whether the US would actually venture in that direction. So, but rules of origin, because a lot of products, for instance, Apple phones, if I may take the name, a lot of components come from China.
Right.
It has been estimated that over 80% of the components, the value, comes from China. Now, whether the US will say, all right, Apple phones, yes, so much tariff, but the component can't be valued at more than such,
Right.
percentage. So that is the kind of thing which will have to be worked out, but that is unlikely to be worked out within 90 days.
Absolutely. Well, I understand that. And of course, it is important that at least the terms of reference have been now agreed upon. But I think from a new announcements on tariffs perspective, there are certain critical sectors on which we are yet to receive any news, positive or negative, and the likelihood of that news being negative is higher in our opinion. But I'm talking about two particular sectors from India's perspective. One is pharmaceuticals and the other are semiconductor chips. Now, one sector where India has a competitive advantage and another one where India wants to build one. So do you think that storm has been diverted, Mr. Dasgupta, or is it just delayed? It is going to hit us in some time?
I think in the case of pharmaceuticals, the US will have to take a very deep look at its own pharmaceutical industry. I would like to place a few facts in that context. One, nothing can sell, no pharmaceutical can sell in the US unless it has been approved by the Food and Drugs Administration of the US. Now, for every manufacturing facility, the FDA gives clearance. And the FDA approved facilities in India outnumber those in the US. So India is the prime supplier of medicines to the US.
That's right.
45% of the generics sold in the US, 4 out of 10 prescription drugs in the US are of Indian origin.
Right.
15% biosimilars are of Indian origin.
Absolutely.
So, if they raise the US raises the tariffs, it is going to hurt the American public the most.
Absolutely.
And the other question is, can the US substitute for these facilities and import it from some other source quickly? The answer is no.
Yes.
Uh,
Stay with us,
uh,
Mr. Dasgupta, because we are also getting live visuals as Prime Minister Narendra Modi has in plane for Saudi Arabia. And PM Modi will be there on a two-day visit today and tomorrow at the invitation of Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince and Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, just for our viewers, Modi will meet Prince Salman during his visit to further deepen and strengthen ties between the two nations. And that is the Ministry of External Affairs that said this in a statement last week. Now, this high-profile visit underscores the remarkable transformation of India-Saudi relations from modest beginnings to a comprehensive strategic partnership spanning economic defense and cultural dimensions as well. Now, remember, Prime Minister Modi's visit comes amid intensified diplomatic engagement between the two nations. Just last year, India made 11 ministerial-level visits to Saudi Arabia. The Modi's visit to Saudi Arabia is crucial for the geopolitical order. The world in general and West Asia in particular is suffering from conflicts made worse by economic tensions. Mr. Dasgupta continues to be with us, sir. We are talking about J.D. Vance's visit, but also another significant visit this morning. Prime Minister Modi now in planing and heading to the UAE. So we were talking about pharmaceutical sectors specifically in the context of US, but India's own energy requirements, and that is where Saudi plays a critical role. And now US saying that it is going to drill, baby, drill, and wants India to buy more energy from the US. How do you think India should be balancing its energy requirements between these two nations?
Actually, it is not a question of the Saudis alone. It is
Right.
also a question of Russia. And the Americans have given an indication that they want India
Yeah.
to, shut off all oil purchases from Russia. That
Right.
was about 2 months ago. Things have changed since then. But I think the Americans are quite intent on selling oil and gas to India and to reduce the trade deficit.
Yeah.
I think the informal reports are that India has drawn up a plan by which the trade deficit of about $40 billion or so will be reduced to about $20 billion by India's purchases of oil and gas from the US
Right.
and coal briquettes, etc. Now, the point is that these have to be bought at international prices. And if the Americans can compete, so be it. We are agnostic to the source from which we buy. But the Russians had sold oil to us at a concessional rate, discounted rate, which helped us in the post-COVID, aftermath, in which economic activities had shrunk.
You're
So
right.
that helped us
Yeah, so
recover.
India is doing India first when America wants to do America first. So technically, the market dynamics should play, and whichever country gives us the cheapest oil, we should go ahead and buy. But Mr. Dasgupta, I believe India's real requirement from the US on the energy front are the nuclear reactors and that technology transfer, which has been pending for decades now. There has been some talk on the small reactors being exported to India. But how long before India gets the entire technology for which, I mean, of course, it would help US as well, and it'll sort of balance out the US trade deficit with India and India's surplus if India buys more nuclear reactors from the US.
That's a very important point because the small nuclear reactors will enable us also to achieve our target of zero carbon emissions by 2070. And we are really looking forward to it. And it is not a question of just buying it, but also about co-production, about transfer of technology, which is extremely important because we don't want to be dependent on any country forever
Right.
or for the foreseeable future. We want to do it on our own, and we have the technology. We are doing large
Visuals of
reactors on
US
our
skip.
own with a little bit of help from foreign collaborators. So I think small nuclear reactors is a very interesting area. It will help us in achieving our targets of zero carbon emission and in providing clean energy and reducing the load of environmental pollution, which the coal-fired power plants in India are contributing to in a large measure.
Well, we will leave it at that. Mr. Jayant Gupta, former India ambassador to the WTO. Thank you so much for joining us on News 9 this Tuesday morning.
Pleasure.